What is the most important issue you've ever changed your mind about?
This is one of those things where I'm sure this is one of those questions where I should have like some answer about some specific subject or something. You know what I mean? Like I know what answer is desired. I know what type of answer is desired, but the reality is, for me, taking ownership of things, right? This wasn't really like I changed my mind to where what I used to say, I'm going to blame everyone. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? That's not the right policy to have. I need to start taking extreme ownership. I didn't do that, but it was just a thing that built and developed inside my brain. And I think it's the most important thing that I've ever sort of recognized or conclusion that I've come to. Now, it's not a change, but I'm sure at some point my attitude wasn't like, I'll just take ownership of that, which it is now. Right. But at some point, I'd say, well, that's not really my responsibility. Right, you know what I mean? Of course. Yeah. That's a natural thing to say. Right. And I'll tell you what, the next, and this is interesting, but the other, and this one's kind of more of a, I can pin it down a little bit closer to an answer that someone would like. And this is, once again, it's going to be a little bit strange, but the other thing is the dichotomy of leadership. And this is the thing about the dichotomy of leadership. And I actually was thinking, I actually didn't really recognize this until the last muster. And as I was thinking about the dichotomy of leadership, maybe it was off of a question. Maybe I think it was actually before. No, actually it was before we even started. I was just like reviewing notes and thinking about the dichotomy of leadership. And one of the most important things about the dichotomy of leadership is that the reason that I came to the conclusion, the reason that I got to the dichotomy of leadership, in getting there, let me rephrase that. In getting to a point where I said there's a dichotomy of leadership, what I had to do was I had to admit to myself that I was wrong about everything. Okay. That's what I had to do. In order for the idea of the dichotomy of leadership to escape my brain, to get out, to become a full thought, what I had to do, I had to admit to myself that I was actually wrong about everything. So I'll give you real easy examples. One of my things that I used to tell guys all the time, you gotta be aggressive. You gotta be aggressive. That's how you gotta be. In order for the dichotomy of leadership, I had to admit, you know what? Sometimes being aggressive doesn't work. Right? I used to say, you know what? As a leader, you got to stand up. You got to be loud. And then I realized, you know what? I see leaders that are too loud. I had to admit that I was wrong about that. That sometimes that was wrong. I had to admit that I was wrong about keeping things simple. Like, hey, you know what? This is one of the most fundamental laws of combat. You got to keep things simple. And then I had to admit that sometimes people keep things too simple. Even this fact right here, right? In order to admit that I was wrong, I had to be humble. And I used to preach, and I still preach humility as being like the most important thing. But guess what? There are people, and there are even me, where there's times and places where you can be too humble. And so this idea that there's a dichotomy to everything, it's something that the original thought for me was, it came from me having one-sided opinion and then realizing that, and I'm almost positive, I don't remember crystal clear, but I'm almost positive that the original thought that I realized there was a dichotomy to was being aggressive. And again, this is all kind of coming to fruition as I'm teaching guys at TradeAt, and Leif was running the junior officer training course, and I used to give them this little, and I remember writing, I remember saying to myself, you know what, I gotta tell guys that they can go too far with being aggressive, and they can go too far with barking orders, that's where it came from. And if I wouldn't have been able to change my mind, right, because that's what this question was, changing my mind about something. The biggest thing probably ever in my life was understanding that just about every characteristic that a person can have, that a leader can have, can go too far, and can become a negative characteristic. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've changed my mind on.
Interesting. Yeah, that aggressive one, that makes sense. Because, like, yeah, being aggressive, like, is one of the more effective ways to straight up, quote unquote, get things done.
For sure.
Right? Do it and it'll be done. Do it, you know. Don't wait. Don't hesitate.
Yeah. Oh, there's a problem in a building. Let's sit back and wait until that problem sorts. No, like, you got to be aggressive.
Yeah. But then and Jiu-Jitsu will teach you all kinds of lessons like this, where if you're going to spring a trap on somebody or something, animal, person, whatever, what's the best type of person that you can catch with a trap? Probably an aggressive one, you know, like they can set themselves up to get trapped if they're like aggressive, you know, like an animal who's real hungry, you know.
Yeah.
Hesitating, like if an animal's like hesitant, you know, just hesitant, maybe sees things develop a little bit before they take certain action or whatever, that'd be harder to trap.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. This is the thing this is what makes humility important, is it's hard to come to grips with the dichotomy of leadership, because if you don't have the humility to sometimes say, you know what, you're right. You know what? I'm wrong.
Yeah. Ooh, that's the hard one.
This plan isn't what I thought it should be.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do that. That's why it's hard to really get a grip on the dichotomy of leadership, and that's what makes it so important. That's what makes it the answer to so many questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will come, like, you know, someone will come up and say, they'll have their counterpoint to what I'm saying. And I'll tell you right now, let me think of a situation where you have to provide a counterpoint. If somebody comes to me and says, you know what, being aggressive isn't always good. Sometimes if you're aggressive, all you do is you run to your death. Now, an egotistical Jocko would say, negative, you're wrong, I'm right. And I would dig in that position. And when you dig in a position, you can't maneuver anymore. So I'm actually stuck. So this is a classic thing to do. Also, when I'm arguing with somebody, if you come to me and you say, I think we should do this, you know, method B, I don't say no, because I think we should do it method A. That's what I think. And you think we should do it method B. You come to me, I think we should do this method B. I think you're wrong. You know what I say? Okay, well, I think you got some good points on method B. Oh, all of a sudden, you know, all of a sudden we're in a totally different scenario.
Oh yeah.
I just totally flipped the script on you.
Yeah.
And you know what I say is, you know, there's some good points that you have. If you watch people debate, it's really a little slick move. But you don't see politicians do it because they're so dug in. Yeah. They can never think they're wrong.
Yeah.
And they can never, and what they also are afraid of, they're afraid if they admit they're wrong about something, they'll look bad.
Yeah.
Whereas if they said, you know what, that's a good point. That's actually a good point. I'm going to need to consider that. I've never really thought of that viewpoint before. You know what? I'm going to assess that. But I think I think there's some validity to what you just said. When's the last time you heard a politician say that? I don't think. And then what happens is, in this day and age, the supporters of that politician, they don't recognize the valid point either. Yeah. It's just no.
Yeah.
So we get people that aren't thinking, and it's very hard to hold dichotomies in your head that this can be right and that can be right. There's an aggressive approach and there's a non-aggressive approach. There's a direct approach and there's an indirect approach, and both of them can be functional. It's really hard to get a grip on that. And yet it's the answer to so many questions. It's the answer to the person, the subordinate that comes to you and says, we should not be doing it this way. If your reaction isn't to diametrically oppose what they're saying, but instead to actually take their side and say, oh, I agree with you. You've got some really good points. Let's see how this would play out. Talk me through it.
Yeah.
Look, you can't even, you're like, wow, you know. You know, it's like a move. Yeah. It's like a jujitsu move. Yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
So there's some things I've changed my mind on about. My mind is open though.
Yeah.
I will change my mind if new evidence presents itself. I'll change my mind in a heartbeat. Yeah. Let's do it. Present me with new evidence.
Yeah. What about like, well, I would think anyway, after kind of thinking about it, where, I think generally speaking, we do kind of respect someone who can change their mind. And we all see it once people's digging into their opinion, and saying all kinds of weird, wacky stuff to try to defend themselves. And you're like, it's not what we're talking about, kind of thing. You see it. It's clear. So like, it seems obvious, like, you should change your mind or at least open up your mind and like how you said, hey, I'll give that some consideration. I'll look into it. And if you're right, shoot, I think you're right. I think that's a better way to do it or whatever the case is. And then I guess technically this is a dichotomy too, where you can't do that too much, because if you're always changing your mind with, like I don't know, we'll say a politician. Right? Every time the opposing view or some other view comes in, you're like, dang, I didn't look at it like that. Or maybe I'll look back or look into that more. And then you do it again and again and again. It's like, Brad, does this guy know anything?
Because guess what you're talking about?
What?
There's a dichotomy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And if you go too far and you change your opinion all the time, and then you become indecisive, and so that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if you're the other side of the spectrum and you're completely dug in, and you never change your mind, that doesn't work either. What do you need to do? You need to balance the dichotomies. The dichotomies between being flexible and inflexible. If you become ultra flexible, where you're just going with whatever anyone's saying, that's not good.
Yeah.
You need to find the middle ground. That's what the dichotomy of leadership is.
Yeah.
But it's hard for people to comprehend that.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to see that where they draw that line.
Yes.
Because they think, well, I'll never change my opinion on this. Okay. Yeah. You just told me where you stand.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like that very much.
Yeah.
Because new information can come to light.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, that's where they stand, right, in that dichotomy or whatever. Because I think part of it, and it's part of it is like, they don't want to be wishy-washy, But the other part of that is, I'm saying if they always change their mind, or if they're so easily to be like, oh, okay, maybe we'll do it your way or whatever.
Flopper.
I think they come off like they don't know anything.
For sure.
Like, so if you don't know anything, should you even be in that position? Like, I don't want you to be the congressman if you don't know anything, kind of thing, right? That's the feeling. So, and now with that's the feeling that people are trying to avoid when they dig in.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit they're wrong, because if I admit I'm wrong, that means for what I didn't know, kind of thing. So it's like, no, bro, you don't draw the line right there. You draw the line a couple steps down the road. Yeah. Be open a little bit.
Give yourself some room to maneuver.
Yeah,
Don't dig in.
Yeah, some room to maneuver.